You know what Ethan's best position is, Claire said, swirling red wine in her glass while 6 people leaned toward her across the patio table. Her smile sharpened. Sleeping. Laughter exploded fast enough to rattle the ice in the bourbon beside my hand. Greg slapped the table. Melissa covered her mouth. Somebody muttered, "Jesus Christ," through a grin. Claire leaned back in her chair like she'd just landed the perfect punchline at a comedy club instead of gutting her husband in front of friends we'd known for 12 years. I held my glass steady. That part mattered to me now. The steady hands. A man notices strange details once humiliation enters the room. The condensation sliding down a beer bottle. The way people avoid eye contact when guilt creeps in half a second too late. The tiny pause before somebody laughs harder because silence feels dangerous. Claire caught my expression and smirked wider. "Relax, Ethan. We're joking." More laughter. Her friend Jenna added, "At least she's honest." Claire raised her glass toward me like I deserved applause for surviving my own execution. I smiled once. Small. Controlled. The kind of smile men wear during layoffs, funerals, and courtroom settlements. 20 years in commercial construction teaches you something useful. People reveal themselves when money, sex, or status enters the conversation. That night, Claire revealed all 3. I watched Brandon Cole laugh the loudest. Brandon always laughed loud. Loud handshake. Loud watch. Loud opinions. The kind of guy who says "brother" every 3rd sentence while scanning every room for mirrors. He sat 2 seats down from Claire wearing a fitted navy polo stretched tight across gym-built arms. She angled toward him every time she spoke. Tiny movements. Knee turned his direction. Shoulder tilted open. Eyes brighter around him than around me. Most husbands miss those details because marriage trains people to normalize disrespect 1 inch at a time. I used to normalize it too. Claire started small months earlier. Comments disguised as jokes. "Ethan's basically retired emotionally. My husband thinks grilling burgers counts as romance. Some men peak in college. Ethan peaked. At Home Depot. Everybody laughed then too. Including me sometimes. Easier that way. Easier than admitting your wife enjoys reducing you publicly. Easier than asking why another man suddenly receives more attention from her than you do." Brandon reached for the bottle opener near Claire's plate. Their fingers brushed. She smiled without looking at me. Reflexive. Familiar. Intimate enough to tighten something cold inside my chest. Then Brandon said it. Casual. Smooth. "Claire tells me Ethan falls asleep before halftime." The table erupted again. Claire covered her face. Laughing so hard wine almost spilled onto her dress. I stared directly at Brandon this time. He held my gaze for half a second before lifting his bourbon like we shared some private joke between men. That was the moment something shifted. Humiliation stopped feeling random. Patterns started connecting. 3 weeks earlier, Claire changed the password on our joint Amex account. 2 weeks earlier, she moved $18,000 from savings into a separate account labeled Consulting Reserve. Last Friday, I found a Marriott Marquis receipt buried inside her tote bag from a marketing conference scheduled 50 miles from our house. She told me the company booked overflow rooms for networking. I believed her because long marriages train men to protect the version of reality that hurts least. Then Claire leaned toward Jenna and said something quieter. I caught only 5 words before the blood drained from my face. "Brandon actually knows what he's doing." Brandon lowered his eyes into his drink to hide a grin. And suddenly, every joke at that table stopped sounding spontaneous. I spent 18 years building structures people trusted enough to move their families into. Office parks. Medical complexes. Retail developments stretching across 3 counties in northern Illinois. Steel, concrete, timelines, inspections. My days revolved around precision because mistakes buried themselves inside walls long before anybody saw cracks. Maybe that is why Claire's behavior started bothering me months before I understood why. Tiny inconsistencies. Tiny accounting shifts. Tiny rewrites of reality. Most men think betrayal arrives. Like a car crash. Loud. Immediate. Dramatic. Mine arrived through spreadsheets, passwords, and the tone of my wife's voice whenever another man entered the room. The party ended around midnight. I loaded folding chairs into the back of my Silverado while Claire stood near Brandon by the patio gate. Her laugh carried low and private now. Intimate enough to sharpen every instinct I spent years training inside boardrooms and contract negotiations. Claire climbed into the passenger seat 10 minutes later, scrolling through her phone with the glow reflecting across her face. "You acted weird tonight," she said. I merged onto the interstate and kept my eyes forward. "You embarrassed me." She exhaled through her nose like dealing with a difficult child. "Everybody jokes around, Ethan. Stop acting fragile." Fragile. Funny word. I handled $80 million construction budgets and crews large enough to fill a football field. Banks trusted me with lines of credit larger than most suburban homes. Vendors called me before sunrise asking for approvals because one signature from me shifted concrete pours across half the county. Yet somehow inside my own marriage, Claire reduced me into a punchline with 3 glasses of Cabernet and a smirk. Back home, she headed upstairs carrying her phone face down against her chest. Another tiny detail. Claire used to leave that thing anywhere. Kitchen counters, bathroom sink, couch cushions. Now she guarded it like evidence. I stayed downstairs and opened our joint banking app on my tablet. Numbers calm me. Numbers expose people. Emotions lie. Transactions do not. At 12:14 a.m., I found another transfer. For $1,000 moved from our shared savings into the consulting reserve account she opened in March. Total balance now sat above $32,000. Claire worked in pharmaceutical sales. Strong income. Strong bonuses. Still, something about the timing bothered me. Large transfers always landed within 48 hours of her regional meetings. I opened the account history and started building a timeline across 6 months. Hotel charges. Upscale restaurants. Parking garage fees downtown. 2 airline upgrades. 1 jewelry. Purchase for $1,100 from a store I had never seen Claire mention once. My stomach tightened harder with every line item. Then came the detail that finally stopped me cold. A recurring monthly payment to a private digital storage company. Encrypted cloud vault services. I stared at the screen for a full minute. Claire barely understood printer settings 6 years ago. Now she paid for encrypted data protection. People change after affairs start. They sharpen. They compartmentalize. They build hidden rooms inside ordinary lives. Around 1 in the morning, I heard soft footsteps overhead. Claire moved across the bedroom floor, paused, then walked toward the hallway instead of our bed. I muted the television and listened. Another few steps, then silence. Seconds later, my phone buzzed on the coffee table beside me. A message preview flashed across the lock screen from an unknown number. 3 words. She bought it. I read the message 3 times before locking my phone and walking upstairs. She bought it. No name. No profile picture. Just a prepaid number from downtown Chicago. Claire stood in front of the bathroom mirror applying night cream with calm, mechanical movements like she had rehearsed this version of herself for months. She glanced at me through the reflection. "You staying up much longer?" "Had some budget revisions." "You work too much." Funny hearing that from somebody building secret accounts behind my back. I brushed my teeth beside her and watched details most husbands ignore. Claire started carrying her phone into the bathroom 6 months ago. She angled the screen away whenever messages arrived. She stopped leaving laptops open around me. She changed our emergency contact passwords at Northwestern Mutual and removed my fingerprint access from the savings app. At the time, each change looked isolated. Responsible even. Together, they formed a blueprint. People preparing exits always tighten digital control first. I learned that during a condominium fraud case 5 years earlier. One partner moved assets quietly for 8 months before filing divorce papers and dissolving the company in the same quarter. Hidden patterns always leave. Fingerprints. Claire climbed into bed and turned away from me immediately. Her phone glowed beneath the comforter for another 20 minutes. Tiny flashes against the fabric. Rapid typing. Pause. Typing again. I stayed still beside her and counted each vibration through the mattress like a metronome measuring the collapse of my marriage. Around 2 in the morning, she finally slept. I slid from bed, carried my phone downstairs, and opened the encrypted cloud service tied to her account. Access denied. 2-factor authentication blocked every entry point. Smart. Smarter than Claire used to be. Somebody coached her. Probably Brandon. Maybe a lawyer. Maybe both. I opened county property records instead. Brandon Cole owned a 2-bedroom condo near Oak Brook through an LLC registered 8 months earlier. Interesting timing. The LLC mailing address linked to a virtual office downtown. Another layer of separation. Another hidden room. My pulse stayed steady while I built folders across my desktop. Screenshots, transaction histories, timestamps, property records, metadata from Claire's shared calendar. I labeled everything by month because chaos loses power once organized. Around 3:30, I accessed our wireless account portal and reviewed device activity logs. Claire's phone connected repeatedly to a tower near Brandon's condo during regional training nights. 14 separate evenings across 5 months. Average stay length, 4 hours and 12 minutes. I leaned back slowly in my chair. 14 meetings. 14 lies. Men always imagine betrayal as passion first. Real affairs run on logistics. Parking receipts. Burner numbers. Shared calendars. Banking transfers. Strategic timing. The emotional side comes later. The logistics expose the truth. By sunrise, I had assembled enough information to scare myself. Claire moved money. Changed passwords. Protected encrypted files. Brandon formed an LLC before their relationship became obvious publicly. Somebody planned ahead. Somebody expected legal fallout. Then I noticed another detail buried inside the phone records. One number repeated constantly besides Brandon's. A downtown family law office. Harrison and Pike. Legal group. Claire called them 11 times in 6 weeks. My stomach tightened harder than it had all night because I recognized the name immediately. Harrison and Pike specialized in high-asset divorce litigation. And at 7:12 that morning, while Claire showered upstairs, an email notification appeared on our shared printer queue labeled Post-Nuptial Draft Revision. I stood beside the printer holding 12 pages of legal language while Claire dried her hair upstairs. Post-Nuptial Draft Revision. The words sat across the top margin in bold serif font beside Harrison and Pike's logo. My heartbeat slowed instead of speeding up. That surprised me. Rage burns fast. Clarity settles colder. I skimmed page after page while coffee brewed untouched beside the counter. Claire proposed asset separation terms tied to future professional liabilities. Elegant wording. Careful wording. Her attorney structured everything around my business exposure through Walker Development Group. If signed, the agreement would isolate several investment properties from marital claims while preserving her access to joint retirement accounts and liquid savings. Clever. Very clever. Somebody coached her well. Then I reached paragraph 14. My eyes locked there hard enough to blur the page. In the event of dissolution resulting from documented emotional abandonment or intimacy failure, Claire sought accelerated equity distribution tied to our Hinsdale property and 3 commercial holdings under my management company. Intimacy failure. I almost laughed. Suddenly the jokes at parties made strategic sense. The humiliation. The comments. The constant narrative about me being emotionally absent, sexually disconnected, distracted by work. She was building a story long before she planned to leave. Stories matter in divorce court. Perception moves money. Judges here neglected wife differently than wife running around with a gym-built salesman hiding assets through shell companies. I snapped photos of every page and uploaded them into an encrypted folder outside our home network. Then I replaced the stack inside the printer tray exactly how I found it. Men lose fortunes during divorce. Because emotion hijacks timing. They confront too early. They panic. They scream. Meanwhile, the organized spouse keeps building documentation quietly. Claire underestimated one thing, though. I build systems for a living. Systems expose weak points eventually. At breakfast, she wore a cream blouse and spoke casually about a sales retreat next Thursday in Milwaukee. 3 nights. Corporate workshops. Team networking. Brandon's name surfaced twice during the conversation. Brandon says the regional team may restructure territories. Brandon thinks the company wants younger leadership. Every sentence carried the same energy now. Admiration sharpened with attraction. She wanted me to hear it. Wanted comparison. Wanted erosion. I stirred my coffee once and asked, "You seeing a lawyer?" Her fork stopped halfway to her mouth. Tiny pause. Less than 1 second. Then the performance returned. For what? Estate planning, maybe. I saw Harrison and Pike on the printer history. Claire recovered fast. Jenna recommended them for tax planning. Smooth answer. Prepared answer. Her eyes stayed locked on mine too long afterward, though. Measuring. Calculating. People tell the truth quickly. Liars monitor reactions. I headed downtown after breakfast and spent 6 straight hours reviewing every joint account connected to our marriage. Brokerage access. Property deeds. Insurance beneficiaries. Tax filings. I traced Claire's transfers through 3 linked accounts before landing at the LLC attached to Brandon's condo. Then another discovery surfaced. The LLC purchased a second property 4 months earlier. Small lake house near Lake Geneva. Weekend property. Secluded ownership structure. Cash-heavy transaction. My jaw tightened slowly. Affairs always escalate once secrecy survives the first stage. Hidden condos become vacations. Vacations become future planning. Future planning becomes replacement fantasies. Around 4 that afternoon, I received another text from the burner number. This one included an attachment. A screenshot from Claire's encrypted cloud vault. Inside sat a scanned document titled Post-Divorce Transition Timeline. And under Phase 3, highlighted in yellow, I saw my name beside one sentence. Push Ethan toward voluntary departure before filing. The burner number stayed silent for 2 days after sending the transition timeline. That silence bothered me more than the messages. Information without motive always carries teeth hidden somewhere. I stopped reacting emotionally and started operating procedurally. First step, contain exposure. I transferred authority over 3 commercial properties from my personal umbrella into a management trust my father established years earlier after a contractor lawsuit nearly buried our company. Second step, isolate liquidity. I opened a separate operating account through a regional bank Claire never used and rerouted future consulting distributions there temporarily under Project Reserve classification. Legal. Traceable. Smart. Every move documented cleanly. Men destroy themselves during divorce by hiding money recklessly. Judges punish deception harder than infidelity. Precision mattered now. Claire sensed a shift almost immediately. Affairs sharpened paranoia because guilty people study behavior constantly. Wednesday night, she walked into my office carrying 2 glasses of bourbon and leaned against the doorway, watching me review construction bids. "You seem distant lately," she said softly. "Amazing how tenderness returns once control starts slipping. Busy quarter. You barely touch me anymore." There it was again. Narrative reinforcement. Building emotional abandonment language for future filings. I saved the spreadsheet on my monitor and finally looked at her directly. "You worried about the marriage or worried about appearances?" Her expression tightened for half a second before smoothing over again. "I am trying here, Ethan. Another performance. Another layer." She stepped closer and set the glass beside my keyboard. Expensive perfume drifted across the desk. New perfume. Brandon probably picked it out. Strange detail to notice maybe, but betrayal rewires the male brain into an evidence collection machine. Every scent becomes data. Every phrase becomes strategy. After she left the room, I dumped the bourbon into the sink untouched. Then I opened the hidden cloud screenshot. Again, and enlarged the lower corner. Metadata sat embedded beneath the document preview. Creation timestamp. Device source. Shared editor access. Brandon Cole appeared listed as collaborator on the file. That changed everything. Until then, I still framed Brandon as an affair partner riding adrenaline and ego. Now I saw structure. Participation. Planning. He helped engineer the exit strategy directly. I hired a forensic accountant Thursday morning through an attorney friend in Naperville. Quiet meeting. Cash retainer. No paper trail leading home. By lunch, we uncovered another problem. Claire opened a brokerage account 9 months earlier under a custodial investment umbrella tied to her mother's address in Schaumburg. Initial deposits matched the exact timing of our missing savings transfers. Total value already exceeded $90,000. Somebody prepared for life after marriage aggressively. The accountant leaned back in his chair reviewing transaction chains while tapping a pen against the desk. "Your wife expects conflict," he said flatly. "This level of compartmentalization takes planning." I nodded once because deep down I already knew. Claire stopped acting like a spouse months ago. She started operating like opposition. That night, she announced another overnight leadership summit scheduled Friday at a luxury hotel downtown. Brandon's company sponsored part of the event. Convenient. She packed carefully too. Black dress folded inside garment plastic. New heels. Jewelry case. Women prepared differently when excitement enters the room. Around midnight, after Claire finally slept, I accessed her iPad through our shared family backup profile. Most messages were wiped clean. Recently deleted folder empty too. Smart again. But cloud synchronization leaves scars. Tiny fragments survive in notification caches. One preview remained buried inside archived metadata from earlier that week. Brandon, once he signs, we are free. My pulse slowed instantly. Signs what? Then I remembered the post-nuptial draft sitting in Harrison and Pike's system. And suddenly I understood why Claire started acting warmer again. Claire left Friday at 4:30 carrying the same black garment bag and leather weekender from our anniversary trip to Napa 3 years earlier. Funny how objects survive long after meaning dies. She kissed my cheek before heading out too. Light touch, careful timing, strategic warmth. Try to relax this weekend, she said with a soft smile. You look exhausted lately. Exhausted, another useful word. People preparing betrayal always diagnose the victim afterward. Too cold, too distant, too distracted. They build moral permission sentence by sentence until guilt feels manageable. I waited 20 minutes after she left before opening the tracker dashboard connected to our family vehicle app. Claire assumed I ignored those systems because I handled enough project software during work hours already. Truth was, men who oversee multi-million-dollar developments learn to monitor logistics instinctively. Her BMW moved downtown exactly as expected at first. Marriott Marquis. Valet entry at 5:18 p.m. Then, 43 minutes later, the car left the garage again. Destination, Oak Brook. Brandon's condo. My jaw tightened once. So much for leadership summits. I drove separately and parked across from the building inside a pharmacy lot with tinted windows facing the entrance. No dramatic music. No adrenaline surge. Just numbers aligning into certainty. Claire entered the condo at 6:31 carrying the garment bag over one shoulder. Brandon opened the lobby door before she even reached it. Anticipation. Routine. Familiarity. He touched the small of her back, guiding her inside. Tiny gesture. Intimate enough to hollow something deep in my chest. I stayed there almost 2 hours reviewing transaction histories on my laptop while the condo lights glowed above street level. My attorney called during that time too. Rebecca Lawson. Shark in a Navy pantsuit with 20 years handling executive divorces across Cook County. I hired her Thursday after reviewing Claire's legal drafts. You still have time advantage, Rebecca said calmly through Bluetooth. But timing matters now. Once she presents paperwork, narrative control shifts. Narrative control. Exactly. Claire spent months painting me as emotionally absent while engineering. Financial positioning quietly underneath. Rebecca already filed preliminary asset protection notices through the trust structure tied to Walker Development Group. She also froze modification authority on 2 investment properties before Claire could leverage marital leverage arguments. Clean moves. Legal moves. Necessary moves. Around 8:15 the condo blinds shifted slightly upstairs. A silhouette crossed the window. Claire's silhouette. Then Brandon's. He handed her a wine glass before pulling her close enough for her head to tilt toward his shoulder naturally. Familiar choreography. Practiced. I stared at the building for a long minute, feeling something colder than rage settle permanently inside me. Respect finally died there. Love survives betrayal longer than respect does. Once respect collapses, the marriage becomes paperwork wearing human skin. My phone buzzed again from the burner number. New message. She thinks you will sign next week. Then another attachment arrived. Audio file. 38 seconds long. I connected my AirPods and pressed play. Claire's voice filled my ears immediately. Laughing first, then talking lower. Once Ethan signs the postnuptial, Rebecca says everything gets easier. Brandon chuckled softly. And if he refuses? Claire answered instantly. Calm. Certain. Then I push harder. Humiliation works on him. He folds when embarrassed. Silence hit me harder than the words themselves. Because suddenly every joke, every public insult, every cruel little comment revealed its real purpose. Conditioning. Pressure. Psychological erosion. Claire weaponized shame strategically for months, trying to force surrender without a courtroom fight. Then the recording continued. Brandon asked one more question. What about the hidden account? Claire laughed again and said 6 words that changed the entire balance of power. Ethan still knows nothing about Arizona. Arizona sat in my head like a hidden fracture inside concrete. Invisible from the surface. Catastrophic underneath pressure. I drove home from Oak Brook around midnight, replaying Claire's voice through the speakers over and over. Ethan still knows nothing about Arizona. Calm. Tone. Light laugh. Total confidence. That confidence bothered me more than the affair itself now. Affairs run on emotion. Hidden interstate assets run on planning. Claire returned home Saturday afternoon carrying shopping bags and fake exhaustion from her leadership summit. She kissed me near the kitchen island and started talking immediately about breakout sessions, keynote speakers, and networking dinners. Too much detail. Liars overload conversations, hoping volume creates credibility. I listened quietly while reviewing an entirely different problem inside my head. Arizona. Sunday morning, I called Rebecca Lawson from my office before Claire woke up. I need every property search tied to Claire Walker, Brandon Cole, their LLC, and extended family connections across Arizona, I said. Rebecca paused only briefly. You think they moved assets out of state? I think they planned further ahead than I realized. By noon, her investigator already found the first thread. Scottsdale, Desert Ridge District. Newly purchased condominium under a holding company named Copper Horizon Ventures. Registered manager, Brandon Cole. Secondary guarantor tied through encrypted trust documentation, Claire's mother. Purchase date landed exactly 3 weeks after Claire first mentioned feeling disconnected inside our marriage. Timing matters. Timing always tells the truth. I spent the next 6 hours mapping transaction flows between accounts while Claire floated through the house, pretending normalcy. Laundry, grocery lists, casual touches on my shoulder. Every gesture felt rehearsed now. Meanwhile, I uncovered $97,000 transferred gradually through layered accounts into Copper Horizon Ventures over 7 months. Smart transfer pacing too. Small enough to avoid triggering standard marital alerts. Large enough to build a future somewhere warm and far from Illinois courts. Brandon and Claire already built an escape route together. Vacation property today. Permanent relocation later. The fantasy sat fully constructed before I even knew my marriage entered demolition. Around dinner, Claire poured wine and studied me carefully across the table. You seem calmer lately, she said. Should I be worried? There it was. Tiny probe. Testing emotional temperature. I cut into my steak slowly and met her eyes. Maybe I finally realized stress solves nothing. She smiled after that. Genuine relief flashed across her face for the first time in weeks. She thought pressure worked. Thought humiliation softened me into compliance exactly like she told Brandon. Dangerous assumption. Quiet men scare people once they stop reacting emotionally. Later that night, Claire fell asleep on the couch watching some reality dating show while her phone rested face down beside her leg. First real mistake she made in months. The screen lit up once. Brandon. Message preview visible before auto-lock engaged. Meeting moved to Tuesday. Lawyer confirmed final numbers. Final numbers. I picked up her phone carefully and used the reflection from the television to angle Face ID toward her sleeping face. The device unlocked instantly. My pulse stayed perfectly steady while I opened her encrypted notes application. Password protected. For digits. Most people use birthdays. Claire used something else though. I studied her for a long moment before typing Brandon's birthday from his corporate bio page. Access granted. Folder after folder appeared instantly. Budget projections. Divorce planning notes. Estimated settlement outcomes. Real estate screenshots from Scottsdale. Then one final document stopped me cold. A spreadsheet titled Post-Separation Allocation. My name sat highlighted red beside projected asset percentages. Brandon's name sat highlighted green beside future investment growth. And under the final column, Claire had written one sentence that hollowed the room around me completely. Once Ethan signs voluntarily, Brandon and I can announce the engagement by Christmas. Everything accelerated after I opened Claire's hidden notes folder. Once people believe victory sits close enough to touch, discipline slips. Confidence creates noise. Claire started smiling more around the house, humming while cooking, leaving her phone unattended for minutes instead of seconds. Brandon texted more aggressively too. Future planning replaced secrecy. Scottsdale restaurants. Furniture links. Desert hiking photos. They already lived emotionally inside Arizona while still sleeping in Illinois. Meanwhile, Rebecca Lawson prepared something far more dangerous than confrontation. Timing. Public exposure changes leverage instantly, she told me Tuesday afternoon inside her downtown office. Especially when financial deception overlaps with infidelity planning. Rebecca spread printed timelines across the conference table with color-coded transaction trails linking Claire, Brandon, the Shell LLC, and Copper Horizon Ventures. Every transfer aligned perfectly beside affair milestones. Condo purchase, Lake Geneva weekends, legal consultations, hidden brokerage growth. This stops being emotional betrayal once money crosses state lines intentionally, Rebecca said calmly. Now it becomes attempted asset manipulation. I nodded while reviewing one final document. She slid toward me. Claire's draft post-nuptial agreement. Revised version. More aggressive language now. Increased pressure clauses. Accelerated property redistribution. She planned to present it Friday during our anniversary dinner, surrounded by friends. Social pressure strategy again. Humiliation as leverage. Brandon would attend too, according to the guest list Claire emailed yesterday. Of course he would. They probably imagined some elegant transition afterward. Ethan signs quietly. Marriage dissolves cleanly. Brandon steps into the upgraded life waiting in Arizona. Beautiful fantasy. One problem though. They built the fantasy using my money, my business structure, and my silence. Friday arrived fast. Claire transformed our backyard into performance theater by 6 o'clock. Catered food, string lights, wine stations, friends gathering near the patio exactly like the night she first mocked me publicly. Only this time I understood the mechanics underneath every smile. Brandon arrived wearing a charcoal blazer, an expensive watch that practically screamed recent debt. He shook my hand firmly while scanning my face for weakness. Anniversary looks great, brother, he said. Brother. Men like Brandon always use fake intimacy before betrayal. Claire floated beside him carrying champagne while touching his arm casually whenever she laughed. Subtle enough for plausible deniability. Obvious enough once truth enters the room. Around 8:30 Claire tapped her glass with a fork and gathered everyone near the outdoor fireplace. Here it comes, I thought. Narrative stage 3. Public pressure. Emotional framing. She smiled warmly toward the crowd first. I know marriage takes patience, she began. Soft laughter spread across the patio. Then her eyes locked onto mine. Especially when one person carries more of the relationship than the other. Several people exchanged awkward glances immediately. Brandon smirked into his bourbon. Claire continued anyway. Ethan and I have been discussing some major life changes lately. There it was. Controlled setup. She planned to corner me publicly into signing afterward while everybody watched the mature couple handling things respectfully. Instead, I stood slowly and pulled my phone from my pocket. Calm movements. Measured breathing. Brandon's expression shifted first. Tiny tension around the jawline. Predator instinct recognizing another predator finally standing up. You are right about one thing, Claire, I said evenly. Tonight is about major changes. Silence spread across the patio now. Real silence. The dangerous kind. I connected my phone to the outdoor television system beside the fireplace and opened the first folder Rebecca prepared earlier that afternoon. Claire's smile faded slightly. Brandon set his drink down carefully. Then the television screen lit up with a screenshot titled Post-Separation Allocation. And directly beneath it, highlighted in bright yellow across 70 inches of crystal-clear display, appeared the sentence both of them thought I would never see. Once Ethan signs voluntarily, Brandon and I can announce the engagement by Christmas. Silence crushed the patio harder than any scream could have. Claire froze beside the fireplace with her wine glass halfway raised while Brandon stared at the television like somebody had ripped oxygen out of the air. Greg looked from the screen to Claire. Melissa covered her mouth with both hands. Jenna whispered, "Oh my God," under her breath. Nobody laughed anymore. I stood beside the television holding the remote loosely while the next document appeared across the screen. Transaction charts. Arizona property records. Copper Horizon Ventures registration filings. Brandon recovered first because men like him survive through performance. Ethan, this is insane, he snapped, stepping forward with forced confidence. You are invading privacy. I nodded once. Interesting word choice from a man helping hide marital assets through shell companies. Brandon's jaw locked instantly. Claire finally moved then. Can we talk inside? She asked quietly. No sharpness left now. No sarcasm. Just panic trying to stay elegant. I kept my voice calm. You wanted public pressure, Claire. Let us stay public. Another file appeared behind me. Her hidden brokerage account. $97,000 transferred through layered deposits tied to her mother's address. Somebody gasped near the outdoor bar. Brandon looked toward the exit instinctively. Predator instinct again. Escape route calculation. Rebecca Lawson stepped onto the patio right, then carrying a leather portfolio beneath one arm. Perfect timing. Claire's face drained completely. Rebecca handed me several documents while speaking evenly enough for everyone nearby to hear. Emergency injunction filings processed successfully this afternoon. Arizona transfer attempts are frozen pending forensic review. Brandon swore under his breath. Claire stared at Rebecca like she had just watched the ground collapse beneath her feet. Then came the final blow. I connected my phone audio to the outdoor speakers and pressed play. Claire's own voice floated across the backyard. Humiliation works on him. He folds when embarrassed. Complete silence followed the recording. Brutal silence. The kind that strips illusions away permanently. Claire looked at me then with actual fear for the first time in months because she finally understood something important. I never lost awareness. I lost patience. Big difference. Ethan, she started softly. Please. That word almost made me laugh. Please arrives late once respect dies. Brandon grabbed his blazer from the patio chair and headed toward the side gate without another word. Nobody stopped him. Men like Brandon rely on excitement and secrecy. Exposure kills their confidence fast. Claire took 2 quick steps toward me after he left. He manipulated things, she whispered urgently. You do not understand the pressure I felt. There it was. Rewriting history in real time. Same strategy. Different audience. I looked directly at her and realized something strange. The pain already faded. Not fully. Not cleanly. But enough. Because the worst part of betrayal never comes from another man entering the marriage. The worst part comes from watching somebody study your loyalty like a weakness to exploit. You stopped loving me a long time ago, I said quietly. But you stopped respecting yourself the moment you turned humiliation into strategy. Claire started crying then. Real tears this time. Messy. Uneven. Human. I felt almost nothing watching them. That scared me more than anger would have. Rebecca handed me the final envelope while guests slowly drifted toward the exits, pretending their lives suddenly needed urgent attention elsewhere. Inside sat the formal separation filing already signed and time-stamped. Efficient. Clean. Finished. I slipped the papers back into the envelope and looked once more at the backyard Claire spent all afternoon decorating for a future she thought she controlled. Funny thing about construction. Weak foundations always collapse eventually. Sometimes slowly. Sometimes all at once. I grabbed my truck keys from the patio table and walked toward the driveway, while Claire called my name behind me with a voice that sounded smaller every second. I kept walking anyway because men survive betrayal the same way buildings survive storms. Reinforce the structure. Cut away the rot. And never confuse silence for weakness again.